Welcome back to the Carrot and Stick podcast, a podcast series where we look to get under the skin of all things performance management and motivation to understand what makes our wonderful world of recruitment tick. Today, I'm sitting down with someone who's very quickly becoming one of my favorite people in the industry. It's Laura Clark, the owner of OA Recruitment Solutions. Laura and I first met about 3 months ago at a dinner that we hosted at the end of January, and she had some fantastic opinions that I knew I needed to draw out more of on the podcast. It took me a few months, but we got her on there, and today we dig into so many topics that I know you're absolutely going to love. From talking about how she bought out her mother from the business a few years ago, fantastic story there, to her humble start inside of recruitment as well with the Yellow Pages. There's a whole journey there behind that, and then we dig into the more modern day. How she manages performance, how she pushes people away from joining the business that aren't going to be a fit for what OA needs, through to her opinions on remote working and various other things between all the way through. Again, I could probably turn this into 3 or 4 episodes. It was a shame almost that we had to cut things off when we did, but I will get her back on for a second episode at some point because she has got so much knowledge to share. Without further ado, though, I'll let her start doing the talking. Let's jump into it with Laura Clark, the owner of OA Recruitment Solutions. Laura, thank you very much for jumping on. Really appreciate your time today. How are you now that we're enjoying a little bit of warmer weather?
I'm cold.
I mean, to be fair, we spoke about this off air. You're rocking the jumper, aren't you?
I'm rocking the jumper. Yeah, it's deceiving, isn't it, to say the least? But
deceiving
it's
early summer.
Out, so I'm feeling good.
Yes, it's always nice and improves the mood a little bit. For those who don't know who Laura Clark is, who OA Associates are, do you want to kind of give us a story on that one as well? How you got into the business, what the business is? It's all yours.
Of course. So I'm Laura. I am the owner of a business called the OA Group. Absolutely love recruitment. Think that it's a brilliant industry. I have 4 children, so I'm a business owner and a mum of a lot of children. Apparently that's way above average these days of children. 2 of them are under 4, recently turned 4. For me, a little bit about me, my main value, my main goal is actually just to enjoy life and have fun. And I think that anyone that knows me well enough will know that I'm all about not taking things too seriously, trying to always improve and develop within my career, but actually enjoying it along the way. Because running a business, Derry, as you know, is stressful. It's hard alongside running a family. And if I thought about what I do too much, I think I'd send myself into a big hole of stress. So yeah. I'm all about keeping it light and having a good time along the journey.
Oh, I love that. It is a very true thing. Like, you get yourself so wrapped in your career at points and just don't have a time to actually step back and enjoy yourself. Like 100%, you'll get overwhelmed. So I back that an awful lot. How did you get into recruitment in the first place? How did that come about?
So I joined the business in 2008, and something.
Great time to join a business.
Pardon?
Great time to join a business.
Well, so story goes, and I'll be really open because there will be people out there that knows the story, that know my story quite well. So, my mum was actually the founder of OA. So she founded the business in 1995, 30 years ago this year. And in 2008, it was the year that I had to go to university. And I did not want to go to university. I was someone who throughout my whole school, as soon as I hit the age of 16, I had 2-3 jobs at a time. Working on Saturday, working on Sunday, working in telesales in the evening, working in a pub, doing what I could to earn money. And the time come where I had to go to uni, got my space in uni, and then convinced my mum that I was going to take a gap year and go travelling. But with that, she said that I had to get a job for a period of time and I had to pay rent, which was fine. So I actually convinced her to recruit me. And I had no training. I honestly sat down at my desk with a Yellow Pages and was like, just call some clients and see if you can pick up jobs. No idea that we were in a financial crisis because I was just young and naive, and just started doing my thing.
Interesting. I mean, Yellow Pages itself is a throwback. I don't think anyone these days could operate without LinkedIn, so that must have been a bit of an experience.
I might bring it back. Is it still a thing?
I mean, people are talking about this all the time. They're just like, do we really still need to use LinkedIn? Can we do something else?
Just shut LinkedIn out down and just go back to... No, I sound like a dinosaur.
Oh, imagine. Fantastic. Do you think there's a piece here, like, now that obviously the owner of the business as well, that it was kind of carrying on what your mum started?
I think there was definitely a massive legacy piece in me buying the business off her. So what happened was we completed an MBO 2 years ago, and she definitely was keen to have it put into safe hands. So we had opportunity to be invested from a PE firm, We had lots of interest from the market, but actually what worked really well for her, having founded the company, almost being a third baby, I've got my brother, she wanted to make sure that it didn't get torn apart. So actually buying it, having me buy it, I think was really nice for her and also for me as well. But in terms of legacy, I think my biggest drive throughout my career has been proving that I am not here because of my mum.
Yeah.
Because you get that. And even sometimes if I meet people and they're like, oh, it's my dad's business, I think, ah, lucky you. And I do it even though it happened to me. So I think my biggest drive has been trying to do it without the shadow, not the shadow, that's the wrong word, but without the fear of people thinking that I got here because of her.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you very much made it into your own. I mean, I didn't ask this earlier on, but how big is the business today? What service, what industries are you serving? Give us an idea about that as well.
Yeah, so we're just shy of 20 million turnover, mainly a temp business, about 80% temp. There's about 45 people within the company, and we service warehouse logistics, distribution, kind of head office, finance, sales, marketing.
Fantastic. And is that the largest the business has been? Or I know the last few years have been crazy. Was it bigger at one point, smaller at one point? How's the journey looked?
We've been pretty steady for about 3 years. We
Oh.
had a slight drop, but pretty much steady for 3 years, which actually, based on last year, we took as a pretty solid because most businesses have declined. So to stand still, that was a lot of hard work just to stand still.
Yeah, like I think you're absolutely right in saying that most businesses I've spoken to have endured something over the last 3 years with the way the markets have been and continue to be. I think we all expected this year to start to get better, but for now, at least, it's still a bit tumultuous here at the start of April, given what the last week has showed us around the world. But
Oh my God, completely, yeah.
yeah,
And I
hopefully
think
things
as well,
start to get better.
it's easy to get caught up in vanity metrics. So actually turnover, some of our best financial profitable years haven't been when we've had the highest turnover. So it's what does good look like to you?
It's a very interesting question. We could talk about metrics, to be fair, because it's one thing that I always love to explore a little bit as well before we get into some of the other topics for today. And I guess it ties into it, actually, because the first topic we're going to go through was performance management in the company. When it comes to looking at data, I think there's a million and one metrics you can track, pull out systems that you use, you name it. Which ones are most important to you as a business leader? I'm curious to know.
GP per head. So GP per head, because that tells you what efficiencies you get within the business. And it's the easy one to manage up. It's not easy to manage up. It's the easy one to measure to see whether you're performing better or worse than year on year or Q on Q. We've also started measuring spend per client. Oh, look, we've got a friend there.
Yeah, she likes to make an appearance. Yes, this
you didn't
is.
warn me of that.
No, here she is because she wants to be famous for a minute. This is Una.
Oh, hi.
She makes an appearance very regularly. She's a nightmare. I don't.
She can join in. So we also, we started measuring spend per client because what we basically realised as a business was that we would invoice. So last year we invoiced just shy of 400 clients. Huge amount of clients.
That's a lot.
If we were to get one perm placement or an extra temp out for every 400 clients, how much revenue that would increase? It would be massive. So we've done this strategy this year where we're actually measuring. We used to focus a lot on new business. And we thought we were good at client retention. And actually we are. But a lot of the clients that we drop off are because we win a new client that might use one temp a year that costs us more money to win the client than it does actually the revenue we're getting out of it. So we've started focusing on spend per client as a metric.
Interesting.
What else have I've just had?
How are you calculating that? You're taking your total cost and dividing it by the number of clients that you've got?
Yeah,
simple as that.
Yeah. And we do it on GP, not spend, because temps obviously carries a far heavier spend amount than perm. So we do it on GP. And then just to break that down, because I think it's easy to say that as a strategy, but what we've then done, and I won't go into too much detail because I could do a whole podcast on this, but we've then graded our clients on that spend and we're incentivise our consultants to cross-sell to increase the spend. So if I'm sitting on a perm's desk and I know they use 30 temps in their warehouse in Derby, I will get I will get paid bonus for passing that sale on and growing alongside someone else.
Nice. It's more about
in their silos.
Yeah, it's more about upsell to existing accounts rather than it is much going and winning new ones. And this stat is now probably wrong, but I remember hearing years ago, like it's 7 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to sell to an existing one. 7 times harder to sell to a new account than it is to one that you already have on your books, right? Because they know who you are.
Yep, 100%. And we've done
Love it.
loads of work around client referrals as well, which just sounds so obvious, but I don't think many people ask for referrals in our industry. You win a client, but actually who supplies that client that's local that we can contact in? Who, there's just so much more to be had at the market that's under your nose.
Yeah.
So that's a metric. What else do we look at? We've started a really interesting one. So we've started looking at performance versus length of service.
Okay.
We look at it every quarter, and it's just touched upon. But something that's been really interesting is we've proved that we get better performance the longer people work here. So our best
You'd
performance.
hope so, wouldn't you? It'd be horrible if it got worse over time.
But you do tend to find that there's complacency that gets brought in. There's that whole, well, they've been here ages, they might not be billing, but actually we've got the sweet spot of when a ticks over to being a really high performer, it is length of service that tends to bring that.
Interesting. This starts to go into the realm of the first topic that you have, which is around performance management. And you mentioned these bot plans earlier that we'll go through in a second. But before we dig into it, how do you handle those kind of conversations? If someone, for example, has become a decent performer, with either been with you for a few years now, for example, but you've seen it do that, they're not really improving anymore on the path to becoming a high performer. How are you having that conversation? Because on their side, I expect they're saying, I'm doing good enough numbers here. Like, you're happy with what I'm doing for you. Why are you trying to push me so hard to do more?
Well, I think there's a step back from that is, do you need to have a conversation if someone doesn't want to do that? It would be an awful business if everyone wanted to be a high performer the next manager. So a business needs consistent billers that may never want to step into a billing role, may never want to have a promotion, and actually that's okay. So I think it's more linked with the drivers of the individual and what you want out of your business. So if we've got people in our company that are absolutely brilliant, loyal through and through, been here a really long time, that just have their drivers and their motivation is leaving on time, getting home for their kids, having a really good work-life balance and doing their bit. And that is good with us. So I don't think there needs to be a conversation around that if they're not saying to you, hey, I want the next job.
Yeah. So it's not you saying we expect you to always be doing this forever. It's more saying, where do you want to get to? Because if you want to be here in the future, then you've got to be on that path now. But if you're happy where you are, that's cool.
So we're okay with that. Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. It's a really good one. I think it was in the book Radical Candor, they speak about this, that you have, I think the terms they use aren't the best. They use rock stars and superstars, where they say rock stars are you ones that turn up, do a great job, but like you say, their priority is life and other things outside of work, family, whatever it could be. Then you get your superstars, who are the ones who are focused primarily on career and wanting to grow and develop and progress through a company. And like you're saying here, it's okay, just know which one you are.
Completely. And it's okay I think the problem is if you don't know what your team are.
Yes.
So if you're not communicating with them and saying, what are your goals? And that sounds really simple, but so many people just don't do it. And we have these monthly discussions they're called CEDs, but it stands for Career Elevation Discussions. And essentially there is a template form. They have to come and mark. We did a load of research. I'll start from the beginning. We did a load of research on one-to-ones. And the research shows that the higher the effort of walking in the room, the less you get out of it. So what that means is if I'm a person sitting and I think, oh God, I've got to have a one-to-one with my manager, I've got to fill out this long form, they don't really care. They come with an attitude of this, just tick a box. If the friction of walking in that room is relatively easy, you get a far more engaged individual. So we made our forms, there's literally 10 questions and they're marked out of 1 to 4. And the reason why we did 4 is because 3 is on the fence and we don't want it on the fence. And it's from, does your boss understand you? 1 to 4. Are you happy? Do you feel that you're on the right career path? Do you think that the expectations are clear? And every month they just mark and we analyze the data and then they just have a conversation. And then what happens? So that happens across the whole company. And then once a month, I have a meeting with all of the managers where we look at all of the answers in collection and say, that's dropped. What have we done? Okay, we've implemented a new CRM. It's been really stressful. So that's naturally probably going to be a bit stressed, that area. What are we doing to fix it? What are the ideas that we could implement? And then we, every single month, do that religiously. And that, I think, allows us to really get a grips of what is motivating, not collectively, but individually our team. And then what collectively as a business can we do to navigate those different motivators?
I mean, actually, there's a few trends in that data, right, about what are the biggest motivators. What do you see being the most common one? Because I think many will go, oh, well, it's money, it's recruitment, of course. But I'm just curious if the data says otherwise.
What are the biggest I would say learning and development. I think that's a really big motivator for my business. I can only speak on behalf of here, right? So money is important to people, it is, but you could pay people more money but never let them develop. And I think people are a bit more savvy and a bit more in control of where they want their career to go.
Yeah.
So L&D is really big, and we allow people to tell us what they want training on, as well as us give them the training. So, Derry, we've met across different networking groups. A lot of people in the business just get out and go and meet and network and come back with ideas. People love that autonomy and freedom. And other people don't want that, and so we're doing, some people in the business are doing level 3 and level 5 management courses because they're more academic. But L&D is a massive piece, and I think that's where opportunity lies within our industry, because from talking to other people in recruitment, it's one of the first things that's cut back on. Whereas I think it's when times are hard, but actually that's therefore then going to impact, talking about metrics, GP per head and various stuff. So I think you've got to lean into spending money on L&D.
I was going to come back and ask you about this, because from the larger clients that we work with over in, say, the States, I know a big focus for their L&D functions, and they invest in them quite heavily, is pushing into how can we drive metrics that actually move the business. L&D isn't this nice, fluffy thing of, oh, do you feel like you're learning and growing? It's much more about the metrics. And often what they'll measure that on is time to first placement for their rookies. How fast are they training them up to a standard they can start making placements?
That's a good, yeah.
Do you tie it back to anything like that? Or for you, is it looking at the GP per head and saying, well, clearly if guys and girls, of course, are more skilled, they'll be making more placements, therefore our GP per head will go up?
To be honest with you, no. A lot of our learning and development at the moment is centered around our future leaders.
Got it.
Because for us to scale, that's one of our areas that we really need to upskill to be able to then increase our headcount. So that's kind of been our main focus as a business, is that future leader piece. And that's really difficult to measure, because you can't measure whether someone's going to be a good leader. That's more, I hate the word soft skills, because it's not soft skills, but it is. It's more emotional intelligence. Can they handle a good conversation? Can they handle conflict? Are they innovative? Can they come up with solutions? That's really, I don't know how anyone who's got a tool to measure that. I don't know if
it's so tough. I was thinking about this 2 hours ago, and like, it's such a common problem all the time. People talk about billing managers being brilliant billers. They get elevated to be a manager because they're like, oh, you're great, you'll make others great, but they're just two completely different skill sets.
And actually, the best leaders we have within the business weren't our best billers.
Is it because you see in them, although they might not be giving you the best metrics and standing out for performance, but you see the emotional intelligence, the things that they need to be a good people leader, and you say, you know what, might not be the best biller, but will be a great people manager, up you go.
Yeah. And we've had the best billers move into management roles, and they've been bad.
Crash and burn. There's a book I've got behind me, on my shelf, actually. It's called Making of a Manager, and it was by, I believe she was a design manager at Facebook. And she was talking about how she had to step up from being a designer to being a design manager, and how she's seen others around her make this step up. And like you just said, some of these people were like the best designers you'd know. Like, there's no chance they won't be able to succeed as a manager because they can coach good work. They know they can coach well, like, all that stuff. But then it comes to being a manager, and within 3 months they've completely crumbled because they just can't hack it. It's not in their skill set. It's not how they're wired to work. And it's such a fascinating thing to see.
Such a fascinating thing.
Well, you spoke a bit about the performance side of things earlier as well. And we spoke about these BOT plans, right? And you said it was an acronym that I've already forgotten what it stands for, but you did say it earlier.
Yes.
Talk me through what these look like. I'm really curious to know.
Okay, so as it was probably 2 years ago when we were scaling heads, we decided that we needed some performance management structure. And again, we're very kind of, probably sometimes to my detriment, I'll ask people's opinions before doing anything.
You'll see.
Yeah. It's really important to me. I don't want to deliver something that lands and then have to retract.
And they just go, wow, you're so out of touch. Like, when you ask our opinion on this, you're like, fine, I'll go and ask everyone's opinion. Then you've got 20,000 opinions, and it's like, what do I do?
I should have asked those opinions. Yeah. Yep. So there's a time and a place. I'm trying to get better at it. But we did ask opinions around performance management plans, right? And the general consensus was, well, if you put me on a performance management plan, I'm leaving, aren't I? I'm going to get the bag, or I'm going to have my notice in. And we were like, that's just not what a performance management plan to us means. A performance management plan means literally you're not doing what you should be doing financially. Let us help you to keep you in the business and get you there. So we actually renamed them, called Back on Track plans. They're BOT plans. And we've had, I couldn't tell you the data, Derry, off the top of my head, but we've had lots of people go on BOT plans, and the majority of them still stay and end up being really, really good billers. And I think a lot of performance management is around how you communicate it and how you train your managers to communicate it as to whether how it's received in a positive or a negative light.
Completely agree. I think the problem you find with a lot of performance management, like PIPs, right, performance improvement plans, as they're traditionally called, is it's a very much a HR first tool. It's a way to protect the business. If you did choose to move someone out, you need to do X, Y, and Z by this date, or we will take this action afterwards. If you don't do that, there'll be one more chance to fix it, and then the exit will be what follows next. And it's a very HR first thing. I really agree with you that the piece on it should be more of like a development and support tool than one of punishment. Like
Absolutely.
100% with you on that.
Yeah. Because actually sometimes, so my philosophy within leadership is that if something goes wrong in your team, it's your fault.
Agreed.
100%. And that might be that actually you recruit the wrong person, or you've not trained them enough, or you've maybe overlooked you haven't asked the right questions to find out what they need. So the bot plan is as much as about the manager understanding what they need to rectify and help the person with, as much as it is the person bringing that to the table too.
Totally.
So it's not that anyone's wrong, or it's just, let's sit down and discuss what it is that we need to do to fix this together, a combined effort. Because we don't
Yeah.
want managers to have failing teams as much as we don't want individuals to fail as well.
And what are the reasons you find these bot plans are needed most commonly? Is it because someone's got a little bit complacent and has dropped the ball a little bit, or are there other things that tend to weigh in?
I think recruitment is incredibly complicated. As much as it sounds simple to go and find a job and find a candidate, I think recruitment is the components of what you need to get right to be a really good, consistent biller. If you zoom in, it's so complicated. And what I mean by that is if you were to process how many conversations and how long it takes to win a new client and a job versus then how many times you need to speak to candidates all the way through getting them to actually be interested in the role, get them to go to the interview prep, interview feedback to the client, those conversations. The actual whole process is really complicated and important to get right. Then you layer on top that you get people that have jobs on that they've got to spend time on for a 360 whilst canvassing to find more jobs when they don't need jobs on, but they need it for pipeline. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm just scratching the surface here. I think the biggest challenge that we have that when we see people go on bot plans is that they just have got in a bit of a confused state as to what needs to happen on their desk. And it's often in here, not because of lack of effort, not because lack of desire or want or capability. It's just they need someone to go, let's strip it back and focus on what it is that's actually going to change the dial.
Focus was the word that I was going to say and was coming to my mind here as you say this.
I really think it's focus.
Amazing. It's so fascinating. I had this conversation a few times with other founders in the software world. And when I'm talking about recruitment, I always say it's like for us, the software founders, it's like trying to sell a product that is erratic, that needs a lot of care and attention, because that's what you're dealing with as a recruiter. Is not only have you got a human on the client side, you've also got a candidate that you've got to worry about. And managing clients sometimes is hard enough. Having to manage a candidate as well who really owes you nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those industries that's so fascinating to observe as someone on the sidelines. I mean, I ask myself that every day, but it's so fascinating to observe from the sidelines. 100%. Yeah. As a question on the performance management piece, though, what about those that are performing okay? Like, how are you having conversations with them to make sure they're staying at the right level, so you're not getting a lot of people falling into the bot plan level?
Yeah. Again, this call is so poignant because of the Q1 review I've just done. I think it's about skill stacking. So if you've got a really good, consistent biller who maybe you can get them up to the next level, or maybe you see potential in them being a future leader, I think it's about bringing them in other conversations that surround their role and keeping them interested. Because again, really contradictory what I'm about to say. Recruitment is really complicated, but yet it's also quite repetitive in some areas. So it's about how do you add extra projects or extra things to give this consultant to be responsible for. So for example, we do mini projects where people will get involved with looking at certain industries and exploring certain industries to bring in different roles into our business, and we'll give them incentives for that. Or it might be that they help train a new starter, or it might be that whatever it might be that falls in line again with their motivators. We went terribly wrong probably about 2 or 3 years ago and started putting people in management roles and then training them whilst they were in management roles. We've gone the other way now, and we train people to be managers before they're managers.
Yeah.
So what we do is the CED plans that the conversations that we have,
Yeah.
we invite people that could be good leaders in to listen to the conversations so they can understand how that works. We invite people into the bot conversations, the future leaders. So they're getting training before, pre-management role, not in a management role, then we give you training. And that in itself is just elevating people massively.
100% agree with you, by the way. Like, even in our business, I've spoken about that with people in terms of saying, yeah, if I promote you to a manager now and then expected you to be a manager, you don't have the skills to do it. You've never done it before. Why would I expect you to be successful? In the same way, I wouldn't go and hire someone who's never been a manager and say, oh, it's okay, we'll teach you on the job. Like, if you're hiring someone into a role and to fill a role well, you want someone that can do some of the responsibility already. And like you, we have, generally senior team members will start offering some coaching, then they'll sit in on one-to-ones, they'll get involved in a hiring process. And when we feel they can do at least 50% of the role they're stepping into, that's when we're then happy to elevate them up to that next level, because otherwise you're just inviting disaster and they're going to feel really hard done by at the same time and overwhelmed, which only leads to increased chance of it not working out, right?
Completely. I completely agree with you. And it's difficult when you're trying to grow a business because you have a level of impatientness. You need people to step
now.
Yeah, you need people to step into the role so I can recruit more people, because I can't overload that person who's now got 12 people. So I've got to have, and you end up then just really damaging the confidence of individuals that probably could be great leaders, but you've given them the role too soon. And then they almost go 2 steps back, or they leave your business, which also can happen. And so to put someone in a management role and then demote them and say, actually, you're 12 months off, that's not nice. That's not a nice conversation. And really, it's your own fault for doing it to them.
Yeah, for doing it far too soon. Like, one thing we love running is, you and I spoke about this before, and we'll talk about this in a bit as well. Like, we're a fully remote business, and every quarter we get together as a whole team.
Yes.
But every other quarter, we have a dedicated managers day where there's probably about 12 to 13 of us across the business, leaders, managers, anyone who might be growing towards that spot. We come along and we'll just run various sessions and workshops. Like, I ran a very interesting one recently about the update to harassment and bullying laws and gave a lot of examples about what was used. It was some very interesting conversations in the room about that. We've done things about like coaching versus lead, like coaching versus training, being a manager versus a leader. And it's a really good chance to expose people to what is being a manager all about. And people always bring along examples of things they've experienced over the last few months and the wins they've had, the challenges they've faced, because it's one of those things that classically you can't teach a lot of things in a classroom. Have people go and take it into the real world and just get it right on day one. There's so many things that you just don't expect to happen, or the reality is far scarier than what you realize it was going to be. It's crazy. So giving those chances, like you say, to develop, I think, before you're ready to go into those positions is so important.
Yeah, 100%. And it's about also being okay with people failing.
Yeah. And also making sure they know it's okay to fail, I'd say too.
Absolutely. Because if I reflect when I moved into a management role, I was awful. Like, honestly, awful. And if I hadn't been given that chance to fail and learn from those mistakes, and there were some casualties along the way, there genuinely was. But I don't know any good leader. I'm not saying that I'm a good leader, but I don't know any good leader that I've looked at that's gone, oh yeah, I was so ready and I was brilliant when I was 25 and went into a management. It just doesn't happen. You've got to allow people to adapt and make those mistakes.
This creates a really interesting question for you as well, because obviously when managers make mistakes, the casualty is another human being. And that means, like you say, that they can come out really worse than that. They can see themselves out the business as a result of it, like whatever it might be. How do you mitigate that? If an individual consultant makes a mistake with a client, okay, you can repair that. Someone in the business, sometimes it can be irreparable. How do you approach that?
Yeah, really good question. I would say being vulnerable and open is the key. So we have had situations in the past where we've appointed leaders and managers that have then damaged the team that we've asked them to manage. And it's about understanding. And I think that most good humans want to give people a chance. And so as long as you explain that, I honestly think most situations are salvable. Is that the right word? Like examples, if I've ever messed up, and I've messed up hundreds of times, Derry, and I'm still gonna mess up, right? We're just humans. It's about apologizing, asking for feedback, and then learning from that. And I think as long as you do that feedback loop and you're open and vulnerable and not defensive with it, then people want to give people a chance to be better managers. And the way that I see it is, if I'm putting someone in a leadership role and I Right, real practical example. I'm putting someone in a leadership role, and all of a sudden 3 delegates of mine are reporting to this person. You sit down with those 3 individuals and say, this is going to be rocky for 6 months, right? And when this person makes a mistake, I want you to tell them, and I want you to tell me, and we're all going to be open about it, and we're going to get them to be a really good manager. But the only way they're going to get to being a good manager is they're going to make a ton load of mistakes in the meantime. You're not going to suffer long term from it, but you're going to be part of this person's journey. Are you in? And most people go, yeah, all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
I,
Bring them along for the journey, right?
Let
And
me
just
on
be
the
open.
ride. Yeah, of course.
The biggest mistake I've seen people make on this front is when they do it for the wrong reasons, is it's not to be genuine in that you genuinely want it to work out. It's that, oh, I've been told that I need to get feedback and I need to do this. And like you say, at least that defensive mindset that just means nothing productive comes out of it. The other side doesn't feel like you're listening to them, and it just ends up worse than when you first went in, right? So it has to be from a spot of, no, we do genuinely want to get better here. This person wants to grow. I want this to work out. We're all invested in success. And
Yeah,
I think as long as everyone's aligned and has that right motivation, it's very rare that those things don't work out.
completely. I think listening is a hugely underrated, untalked about skill. We all know that it's really important, but we all know when we go into a room and you walk out and you go, that person just didn't get me. They just didn't listen. But I don't know, like, even if I look at leadership training and I look at the topics, listening doesn't very often appear.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're in an environment where you're not being heard.
Even worse when they say, I hear you, and then go on to explain their point as if you hadn't said anything in the first place.
Yeah.
It's something I catch on these podcast episodes really interestingly. Sometimes I'll think to myself, oh, I've got something I really want to say as that person has started talking. And then I'm like, I'm now listening to wait my turn, not listening to actually listen to what they're saying, right? And I'll always catch myself thinking about it like, hang on, maybe they'll say something else here that's more valuable than what I was going to say. And let's give that chance to come out. So that's more me reflecting on myself on these sort of things as well.
Absolutely. And the fact that you're even aware of it. I have a good friend of mine who I won't mention her name, but you probably know who she is, but she's accidentally mentors me. She doesn't know it, but she's basically a free mentor. And I go for lunch with her every now
Don't
and
let her
then.
hear that. Should be charging you for it.
No, I know that's why I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to. I pay for lunch, so that's fine. And she taught me once something about listening. Maybe she was telling me that I wasn't listening, and that's also fine. But it was about how to cue. So when I'm talking to someone and I think of something, I just say, stop there 1 sec. And I literally write down a word and I go, sorry, I was thinking about something I wanted to talk to you about earlier. I didn't want to think about that, carry on. And that's helped me massively because I I'm like, I have 1,000 things going through my head. And actually to be present, I almost need, okay, give me a sec. I need to write that down because I'm then conscious I'm going to forget it. And I want to like say it so much. So cueing has really helped me be a bit more present in
Hang on, I'm going to
conversations.
write that down. Give me a second.
There you go.
No conversation. So I actually like that as an idea as well. I might try and use it myself and let you know
It
how I get
really
on.
helps.
Thank you, mentor, for the second-hand
Yeah, thank you.
advice.
Mentoring the mentor now. Pass that
That's
on.
it, spot on. Yeah, I love it. Cool. And then probably another part of this, we spoke about performance management earlier. The second topic we spoke about was being upfront when you hire people about what your expectations are and making sure that's clear. And this kind of ties a little bit into culture, I guess, one about honesty and transparency at the same time. You said to me before we came live that a big part of how you look to hire is you don't hide away from the role being hard work. And recruitment is hard work. If you're coming into it wanting it to be a 9 to 5, easy part-time job that you aren't going to have to put any effort into L&D for example, to grow your skills, it's probably not going to be a career that you can be particularly successful in. How do you guys approach hiring and making sure you get the right people at OA?
Okay, so the way I look at
Big topic, I know, by the way.
yeah, where do I start? Do you know what I thought of straight away when you were talking? Is a big red magnet. Right, bear with
Okay,
me.
I will.
Let's
I
vision
was about
it.
to say, I'll bear with you on this one.
Bear with me. And you've got one side that repels, and you've got one side that draws people to you. And that's what your business is. And I have genuinely made the mistake so often where I want us to draw everyone to work for us. And what you end up doing is in situations where you convince people to work for you because you know that they're great people, you know that they're from your competitor or they'll be an asset. But the truth is, they don't align with your culture and your expectations. And you get in this world where you're people that really you should be repelling, you're trying to attract, and then you end up with a really difficult situation on your hands. And we've all done it, I'm sure. But, you know, it might be that someone will say to you, oh, I really want to do recruitment, but I'm not a huge fan on sales. There's not loads of sales in there. And you go, well, no, you do a bit of sales here and there. And what we'll do is we'll help you with that. Don't worry too much about it. Whereas now we say shitloads of sales. If you don't want sales, this is not your place. And then what tends to happen is someone will go, okay, I can cope with that. Actually, I'm fine. Or thank you for telling me, and I don't want to be doing that anymore. But I feel like it has to be one or the other. If you've got people floating around in the middle, then I just don't think they're right for your company. And we've become a lot stricter with that. And some practical things, and I wish someone told me this sooner, because this changes my world, right? And this might be really wrong. I'm going to say
I'm getting ready to cue this one. Go on.
When we have people come and join us, when they come to interview, they interview with the hiring manager first, and then on second stage, they come through to me. I don't talk to the hiring manager about them. I don't look at their LinkedIn. I don't even look at their CV. I go in the room by myself, and I've not been influenced at all before I go in that room. I get infected by people's energy really easily. And if someone comes to me and says, oh my God, we've got an interview and I love them, they're going to be great for us because of X, Y, and Z, I've already walked into that room pretty much convinced that they're going to be our next recruit. And I haven't come from it with a fresh perspective. Equally, if I looked at a LinkedIn page and I see that they've had 3 jobs in 3 years, I might make a preconceived idea about that and already decide actually they're not going to stick with us. All of those unconscious bias parts of my recruitment process I try to remove. So I no longer interview alongside one another. And I have no idea whether I know that they like them because they've come to a second interview with me, but I don't know why they like them. I don't know who they are. And then when I come back to the hiring manager with my feedback, it's under no combative approach to why they like them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, for example, I love this person because X, Y, and Z, and I might see a different side. And already I'm coming to the conversation saying, oh, I know you said you like them because of this, but this is my thoughts. Whereas I will just go straight in with what I see.
Interesting.
And that's really helped the hiring process.
Do you do that call alone, or do you have it with the hiring manager in the room with you as well?
Alone.
Got it. And you do have them saying to you beforehand, these are the things that I like about them, or do you just say, I don't want to hear that at all?
Nothing.
You wait till after. Got it.
Yeah, so I've got an interview today at 4:00 for a new role. I know his name.
And that's it.
That's it. And Natasha, who's interviewed him, started telling me earlier because she was excited about him. And I said, And she went, okay, I don't want to know. And then we have a debrief call with our notes against certain questions. And because I think it's easy to miss blind spots when you've got someone in your ear trying to convince you that they're a good hire. Whereas when you go in without that, I'm actually looking at it from a blank canvas. And
we've all been blinded by, I billed this much for 3 quarters in a row. I worked at this big company. I got to this place within this role within 6 months of being at the company, for example. You get blinded by that, right?
You do.
Yeah. So what do you ask in these interviews?
Oh, God.
Do you tell them up front, I haven't looked at your CV, your LinkedIn, everything. I want to get to know you. Yeah.
I tell them.
I love it.
Yeah, I do. Because I don't want to lie, number one. And actually, it's a bit like your company values, right? You ask the question, do you know what we're about? But someone can go on. I actually really hate that question because they just go, yeah, your company values are you're innovative, you're this. And I think, oh God, how dull. Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. Well done. You've read our website.
I say, I don't know anything about you. Tell me you. And I actually got berated quite heavily on LinkedIn by a post that I did recently about these kind of interview questions. I actually think the winning formula of someone in recruitment is their mindset. Yeah, I can teach you skills. We can do training courses. It's their mindset. So for me, the biggest thing that I want to get to know is how do they think about themselves? What's their self-belief? What do other people think of them? And what's their perspective on that? And I've had people that have not joined the business because of one question I ask, which is, what do you do to invest in your own development and growth? And I remember one lady vividly, she said, oh, no, I don't do anything. I know everything. I've been doing recruitment for 15 years. I know what I need to know now. So it is probably quite a personal interview.
Yeah.
And whether or not that's right or wrong, I completely understand how there's like a whole ED&I piece and it should be skills. And I get that. But our industry isn't skill-led.
It's people.
It is mindset-led. It's relationship-led. And so I want to know the person.
It's really hard to describe it. Like, I look at like the number of times that we've rolled out things like scorecards across interviews, and often when it comes down to the end and you've got two very similarly scored people, they've kind of passed the gate to get to the next stage. It's bad, but it feels like sometimes it slips back to being like your gut feel on a person. Do they give you that right spark or that right idea, the right energy where you're just like, this person's got something a little bit special about them here, and we have to take a kind of like a punt on them in a way? And it throws out all the kind of ideas of these frameworks and the psychology of it and all the rest of it. And sometimes like the hires that we've made, sometimes where we thought, you know what, this person's amazing, they're really special. They're great people, but might be crap in the role. And other times people that we wouldn't really rate that we've then said, you know what, they've got the right set of skills, turn out to be absolutely amazing and really good people. It's just in an interview environment, they're quite nervous. The way that we've tried to solve that a little bit is whenever someone applies for a role, we normally screen the CV first and check, you know, if they've got the right set of skills for the role. If someone's applying for a senior sales role, they've never done sales, we're not going to be able to take them forwards. But one thing I always do, and it comes back to your magnet thing earlier, that analogy is going to stick with me forever now, so thank you so much for that, is I always send them a 10-minute video. I pre-record it once so it's there for everyone to watch. And I talk about the role, I talk about the company, I talk about me, and reasons why they shouldn't take the job, basically. And I say, look, I want to ask you for a video back, a 3 to 4 minute video telling me 60 seconds about you, about your career, but I also want to know for 60 seconds something you're really passionate about and tell me about it. Because that then you see the sparkle behind people's eyes and how they approach that is great. But the number of times people have gone, I'm not doing that task. Like, it feels beneath me to record a video, someone said to me, and I was like, then don't do it. Like, thank you for disqualifying yourself. That's brilliant. But my favorite thing about it is because it's so rare to have to do a solo speech to a camera. It's a really uncomfortable situation for so many people. And it shows those that are willing to take a little bit of a risk and do something a bit different, but it also really engaged them in the process because they've seen from us straight away, here's the human, here's the role, here's who I'll be managed by, here's stuff about the company. And it's not corporate crap that you see in a job description. And I absolutely love doing that.
I really, really like that. I might steal that from you.
Give it a whirl and find out what happens. I'd be really keen to know.
I really like that.
And I'll nick that one from you as well about the whole completely blind first chat with someone. Because I've stepped back from hiring now. I know in the last few roles we've hired in the business, I haven't been involved at all. I would love to actually try and do that blind interview thing. So let's swap and we'll see how it goes.
That.
Yeah, I'll give it a
Like
whirl.
I said, I don't know whether it's the right way to recruit. Obviously, we're in recruitment. So, you know, I do completely understand and empathise with the whole framework and the whole skills. That's not where I come from. My interviews, the hiring managers vet all of that part. I'm more
Everyone's got an opinion, I think, when it comes to hiring. Everyone believes that their way is the way to do it. They'll change that way sometimes as well. You can do it the purely science way. You can do it the pure art way. The truth is, no one has got the perfect solution to hiring. There just isn't. You do what works for you.
Well, if you strip it back, Derry, my honest opinion is that people join jobs. No one goes to work because they love the job. They love the environment. They love the setup. They love the manager. They love the team. Whatever it is, it's never the job. Like I could work in 20 different recruitment firms and get a job as a consultant tomorrow. Yeah. What's going to make me want to work for that company or recruit that person is so much deeper than that. That is personal. Jobs are personal. But yet we're kind of taught and speak quite a lot about making it not personal.
But it is inherently a people-focused thing. You work with a team unless you're a one-man band, right? Like, it's always be about people.
Completely.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. We could go on that forever as well. So we spoke a bit around being upfront what you want from a new hire. Out of curiosity, what things do you say, here's why you shouldn't join our business?
Here's why you shouldn't join our business.
Yeah, why shouldn't you join OA?
Okay.
Like a reverse hiring pitch you're getting a chance to do now for those that listen.
Yeah.
Don't join us because of X, Y, and Z reasons we're awful. Go on, I'm curious.
Yeah, if you want to... Okay, I think there's two different things. If you come and work for me personally, if I'm your manager, don't expect to be managed daily. I'm a terrible man manager in terms of micromanagement. If you're coming to work for the business, I would say we always oversell the amount of hours, time, and effort that you need to put in at the beginning to be successful. The work-life balance piece exists on certain days, but on other days it doesn't exist. So if you're someone who wants to clock off at a certain time every single day, day in, day out, we are not for you.
Yeah.
And let's not pretend about that. You have to treat people with kindness here. And that is, everyone likes to say they're a kind person, but we really want people to evidence it. And for me, the biggest area where kindness is shown is when you're failing and others are doing well. So I love to hear about situations like that. And being super self-aware. If someone, when you interview people and you're asking them, we ask situational based questions, and every situation they've ever been in that's negative is attributed to someone else. That's a no for us.
Tells you enough, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's a no for us. And we will tell the candidate that too. We'll feed back and just say, we believe in being accountable. If you failed at something because the job that was offered to you wasn't what was on the job description, then the likelihood is you probably didn't ask enough good questions to work that out. And if you can't recognize that, you're probably not someone who's right for us. So accountability is massive. And I think someone who's stuck in their ways,
Unwilling to have a growth mindset, as we call it,
you've
versus a
got to
fixed
have a
one.
growth. Yeah. And it's really interesting because, and I think that sometimes the challenge with people that come from within industry is, well, I used to do it like this, or I used to do it like that. And that's okay if there's good ideas that you can introduce to the business, because we're always the best artists still, right? We always want to take different ideas that are going to make our business better. But if you're consistently comparing where you are to where you were, then why did you leave where you were? Just go back. You left for a reason.
Yeah.
Leave that in the past and let's move forward with where we are now. So there's so many things, but I think for me, you've got to want to turn up. We have high expectations here. We have high accountability. If you've been in an environment where you've been able to hide, not for us.
Yeah.
If you can't recognize how you can improve, not for us. And you've got to want to put in the work as well in your own development.
The number of fireworks going off my head here as I'm thinking about different things as you're speaking is unbelievable. The one thing that's really clicked to me from this conversation so far is I think about how often people speak about, know the kind of clients that you want to work with or the kind of customers that you want to win, or essentially, know what is an anti-client for you and actively push them away. How often is that a thing that's done in the hiring process? You more look for the things to say yes to than things to say no to and actively try and disqualify people. We kind of almost get it the reverse to how we win new business, yet building a team and hiring team members arguably is even more important than the clients that you win.
Completely. We have a philosophy here, whereas if it's not a yes, it's a no.
I do that, but insert the word fuck between both of them. If it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no, is how we say things.
Yeah.
And I've had managers say that back to me. I'm like, when they're deliberating between 2 or 3 candidates, I'm like, right. I mean, across all 3 of them as well, but comparing them against each other, is that person an F yes versus an F no? Versus that person, they're just like, no. And I'm like, then it's a no.
No,
move on, find someone else. Yeah. And it's just funny when they come to me and say they were good, but they were not an FES. I'm just like, good. That's the right mindset to have.
Yeah. But that's really difficult to have if you've got targets and you've got an empty desk and you're getting a bit into desperation. It's really difficult to.
But we know that rushing highs is a terrible idea, right?
Terrible.
Time and again, it's proven itself.
Yeah.
We had it about 18 months ago. I forget when Adam joined us now. We were going through a hiring process to replace our head of product, a guy called Alex Wiley, had been with us for 5 years, fabric of the business, loved him, really worried about what would happen to the culture and the roles that he filled in the business. And so we were really keen to get someone hired in before he left. And we got to Christmas, which was a month after he'd already left, and we still hadn't found someone. We were down to the last candidate in the interview process. And I thought, I actually quite like this person. I really believe with another chat, the SLT will see what I see. And we got to the end of it and they weren't convinced. And I was like, right, we've restarted the whole process in the new year. It then took us another 2 months to find the right person. So it's that was the most painful example of leaving a seat vacant for 3 or 4 months. That I was like, I need someone in this role so badly. But I know that if we'd hired the person we spoke to in the first round, if you're watching, I'm really sorry. If we'd hired them in the first round, it probably would have been a case where 6 months later, we were back at market again, looking for that person. That's even more pain than just waiting an extra month or 2 in the first place.
Did you hire someone?
We did. Adam VP, who's now our VP of product, and I absolutely adore him, bless his heart and soul. One of my right-hand men. Yeah, he's a good lad. So many lessons you can have. Honestly, I could talk for 2 more hours about this stuff. I find it so fascinating hearing what you're talking about, but I'm very aware we've got about 7 minutes left before you've got to dart off to your meeting. So let's move on real quick then, because this is related. Working from home in 2025. This has kind of been a quieter conversation now that AI has came around, but more companies have over time very quietly reintroduced office working and pull people back in more often. Hybrid is kind of where a lot have settled. Where do you sit on this? Do you see people working hybrid? Are you in office full time? And how does that differ between, say, junior and senior employees?
I watched a really interesting video this morning of a lady called Emma Greed. I don't know if you know who she is. So basically, she is the CEO of Good America. I'm obsessed with her, mainly because she's a woman with 4 kids and has just absolutely bossed business. And she has this video and it resonates with me so much because how she articulates it's far better than I'm going to articulate it. I have no issue with people working from home. I have no issue with businesses that choose to work home. And Derry, if the interview was on the other way around, I'd be very interested to hear how you do what you do. But for me, I'm about proximity. I'm about rubbing the shoulders with people that you aspire to be, learning from them daily. And how she articulates this is more about women and about how we will actually hinder our careers by not being around aspirational leaders that we want to grow by. It doesn't mean we can't have flexibility. It doesn't mean that we can't be at our kids' school play, or we can't pick them up from school, or we can't have autonomy. If I think about the biggest lessons that I've learned in the business is, one, obviously doing things wrong and learning from it, but is two, going out and seeking advice and growth from other people and being surrounded by like-minded people. And I just don't believe we can do that full time behind a desk in our kitchen. That's my opinion on it.
I love it, because one thing you've related to there that I remember hearing another CEO speak about, and it was years ago now, I can't remember who said it. They maximize collisions, as they call it. The number of times that people collide in their day-to-day business, through being in the office and just catching each other and talking to each other, because he said at the point of every collision is where growth happens. It's where you learn something. It's where you develop a relationship. It's where you feel more fulfilled. And the more collisions that you create, the more that they happen, the stronger the environment that you're in. Now, for some roles, don't get me wrong, like we hire a lot of developers, and I know full well if they were in an office being nudged every 5-10 minutes to say hello to someone, they would get nothing done. Yeah. But I do massively agree that in a sales-heavy environment, things like recruitment, even our sales team to a degree, the more that they are around each other and colliding, the more valuable it is.
I agree. I'm going to give you a real-life example that happened yesterday. So we implemented a new CRM in February, which I don't want to talk about.
My condolences.
Stressful. But it can sequence, right? So we've now started talking about sequencing.
I think you gone to Loxo?
No, it is Tracker.
Oh,
so we started
excellent.
looking at Tracker and how we can add sequencing onto our candidates, clients, placements, processes, all of that stuff. We've got an ops manager here called Kelly. She can hopefully listen to this. And the amount of times I've spoken to her about sequencing, it's frightening because we've never done it before. Okay, I'll get to the point of the story now. Kelly is completely different to me. I am a massive rule breaker. If you said to me now, don't stand up whatever you do, you can bet money that I'd stand up.
Don't stand up whatever you do.
Anyway,
granted. Sorry, I had to do that.
And Kelly's extremely rule driven, which you need in ops, right? Because that's the whole purpose of the business. Had a meet with her yesterday face to face. I could sense some nervousness about our first sequencing, and I left. I had a gap in my diary. I went and sat next to her, and I sat there and I said, Kelly, I'm not leaving your side until you do that. And she went, oh no, I haven't got time. I said, no, you have got time. We're going to do it. And afterwards she went, I'm so glad you did that, because I wouldn't have done that. And I know that's just a small example, but if we'd have been in separate offices, I would have had that Teams with her, spoke about sequencing, left her, and it might have taken her a week to get round to it because of various putting it off. It's scary. It's new. We're in the same office, so we challenge and push and make each other feel uncomfortable all the time. And I think that is really, really important to me personally running this business. But anyway, we do have people that work from home. We have people that work days from home. We're pretty chilled about it, but on the whole, I would say 3 or 4 days a week we're all together.
Yeah. How strict, how hard are you on that? If you're hiring someone, for example, do you say, look, the expectation is you are in the office at least 3 days a week? Or do you say, we're flexible and you can choose what's best for you?
We'd like to set the boundaries from the day one.
You like to set them, or you do set them?
We do set them from day one. People can apply for flexible working, or they can speak, and we're open to having conversations. But again, going back to that, this is our expectation. If you leave it wishy-washy, you end up with someone going, oh, I thought that I could work 3 days because on a Wednesday I've got to pick up my kid. And you go, no, on a Wednesday you need to be in the office because we've got our big teams. No one told you that. So I don't want the conversations like that. It's like, these are the core minimum expectations. Are you in or are you out?
Yeah. I love that as well. No, that's really, really cool. Like, the one thing I think a lot of companies make a mistake on, and truthfully, we do this at times as well, is they don't have a firm position on a certain policy or a way that they want to work. They kind of go, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can go and do this. And before you know it, the whole thing is just a mess where people are doing something over here and these guys are doing it differently over there. And I'm trying to get better at kind of being very clear on what those things are. So I do love that from day one, you say, no, this is how we work. You can be flexible around that, but here are our concrete expectations on when you will be in, which I do love.
It sounds to me like at times you've made the same mistake that I've made, where you give too much rope and then it's far more difficult to rein that in.
Yeah.
And it can end up in really not a great situation where it's much easier to keep the rope and then slowly release it as you know and trust someone.
Totally. I'm always very aware of that. It's like, like you say, it's easy to give. It's hard to take back. Like it can be anything like, benefits, flexibility, you name it. They're great to give and you feel, yeah, great. I've given something else to my team. I feel good about it. But when you've got to take it back or you've got to change something, it's just like, oh, painful, hard, horrible. Yeah, not good.
I know we've not got a lot of time, but I once did unlimited holiday for everyone in the business.
People have asked me about this before, and I'm quite a staunch opposer of unlimited holiday. Why did it not work out for you?
Lack of boundaries, lack of clarity, caused massive anxiety.
Absolutely agree.
As much as people love holiday, they don't love not knowing how much they can take without being judged.
Guilt.
Not that anyone's judged, but it just honestly was an absolute shit show. I would not do it ever again.
No, like we researched it for a while and I watched a couple of companies go through a trial of it because I've always been wary of it. It sounds great on paper. Wow, you take holiday whenever you please. That sounds amazing. But my big concern with it is, like you say, no one really knows what's the rough approximate amount that's right to take. Should I be taking 2 weeks off in a row, like every 3 months or so? You feel guilty for it.
Is that person you don't want them to take that holiday off? Or?
Exactly, yeah. It's really hard. And the companies that have made it work, from what I understand, are the ones that they have quite high expectations. They're saying, look, if all your work is done and you've met what we expect of you, you take that holiday and you do as you please. But a lot of companies tried it, had the experience you had, and then have gone back to saying, no, here's a set number of days. It's predictable. Everyone knows what they get, and everyone's much happier that way. Exactly that. Speaking of boundaries, as you say, we are basically at time, and I am now holding you back from your meeting. I'm pretty sure that your team hate me at this point.
I'm hovering around outside my office.
It's like, Laura, come on. So we'll wrap things up there. But that was an amazing chat. We'll have to do a second episode at some point because there are loads of topics you and I can get into, like from the dinner we had in January and the chats that we've had since. Like, I just know that there's so much that I'd love to go through with you at some point. But thank you. One of my favorite episodes I think I've ever done. Last thing I'll ask you, who do you take inspiration from? If people listen to this and wanted to say, cool, I love Laura, but who does she learn from? Where would you point, except for Emma Greed?
I love her. Can I not use her?
You can. Yeah, you used it once. I'll let that count.
I listen and I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot.
Favorite podcast? Favorite recent book you've read?
Favorite book I've read recently was Never Split the Difference.
Great book.
Brilliant book. And Radical Candor by Kim Scott is another good book that you referenced earlier. Podcast, I do like a bit of Stephen Bartlett just because it's so varied.
I agree.
Long episodes though, like 2 hours.
It's a good. I mean, we could go for 2 hours on the next one and make it basically a diary of a recruitment CEO, I guess.
Well, I learned though recently. On your podcast, you can times 1.5.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what I do for every podcast. My partner watches YouTube videos and 2x all the time, and I do not know how she manages to comprehend what people are saying, but it's a permanent thing she's done for years.
Wow,
very impressive.
1.5 is like my limit, but I've just cut that down in time. So yeah, that was something I learned the other day.
Awesome. Well, again, massive thank you for that one. We'll have to do another one at some point soon, but I'll let you get off to your meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Derry. Thank you so much for having me.